So this whole journey for us started actually in South Africa. We were hanging out with some friends there, and while we were there, God really surprised us and began to stir both of us to maybe plant another church. I honestly didn't see that coming. It was so left field at the time, we didn't even really tell anybody. We started dreaming into, okay, God, like, if you are saying this, then when and where? And pretty quickly, it just became clear that Austin, Texas was supposed to be where we did this thing.
And we were so excited, and then it led to naturally the next question of, all right, God, who's gonna come with us? Who do we bring? And we started inviting people to our house, shared vision of what we felt like God was speaking about Austin, what our church was gonna be about, and invited people to join us.
I met up with JD because I was curious about what Antioch Austin was gonna look like. At the time, I had some dreams where I was just feeling like God was telling me that this was the move forward, and I just said yes.
I remember sitting in JD and Liz's living room in Waco when I had graduated from Baylor and hearing them share their vision for a church in Austin that would be vibrant, that would just spread God's colors and God's image in the city of Austin. It was something I wanted to be a part of.
Man, everything that we've done has been built on the shoulders of people that already lived here. And they really pushed this vision forward. Even before we were able to move here, they were diving in, starting life groups, making things happen.
We kind of carried a hope maybe in our hearts that eventually an Antioch would plant in Austin.
When I think about Antioch, the church finally happening in Austin, vision nights, vision rallies, all those things, I think about how it felt so like such weird timing. The Griffins were finally adopting their twins. They were planning a church at the same time. And I remember having this thought that it felt so right that these things are happening at the same time, because the way that I imagine it must have felt for them to have longed for their twins for so long, to long for these kids, and then for them to meet their new parents, I felt so similarly in that we had longed to see the church here in Austin. We had longed for community.
The one thing I think about when I think about those early days of the church is just a sense of belonging. We had the signs at Antioch that say we belong here, and I feel like we really felt that. It was something that we had been missing since we had been in Austin the past year or two or so.
One of the biggest things that impacted us when we were involved with Antioch and Baton Rouge was just the meeting house to house. And so the biggest desire was to get back to that and to be able to just jump in with our people.
I just remember us thinking, Lauren and I talking, just saying, if we were planning a church, we would probably just think, I cannot believe someone in that town will start a life group. That's amazing. We're like, maybe hopefully the Griffins will feel that way too. And there was a core group of people that were ready.
You know, so as we were experiencing this momentum that really felt like it was, in a lot of ways, rushing in front of even what we felt like we could help facilitate, we started realizing, like, wow, I think we might need to move up the timeline.
I remember just going door to door with JD with different locations and different schools, and getting a no after no after no. And even just one of the schools that we just saw so much promise, and all the meetings were amazing. And we even told our church that we were gonna meet there, and they called me back and say, oh, you guys can have the building, but only for one Sunday out of the month. And we were just so discouraged that we feel like what God was doing was right, but also we just couldn't find the right location.
We end up meeting a guy named Jose, who was a social worker that worked at the middle school, Dobie Middle School. And so he was like, hey, we actually would love for you guys to come and meet here, but I need to tell you that this street that our school is on, Runberg, is really infamous in Austin for being a place for crime, violence. And I remember Moses and I kind of looked at each other and we said, this is absolutely perfect.
So then this relationship formed with Jose, which is the social worker at the school, and we thought, man, what an opportunity to partner with him
for an Easter event, a Catholic event. We do these Catholic events every year, and we just really saw Easter as an opportunity to go big in the neighborhood.
At this point, we were kind of averaging like maybe 70 folks on a Sunday,
Yeah.
and we had this vision and this dream that Easter and the Easter Carnival was going to be huge, but it was like a massive faith step. Like, we felt like when we prayed into this, God was saying, you need to expand your tent, man, widen, expect a harvest. And I remember like looking even like a couple of weeks before the Easter event, just being like, man, I hope somebody shows up.
Yeah, I mean, our team, like, we put it all on the line. We cast vision for our church that, like, this room on Easter is going to be full.
Yeah.
And this carnival is going to reach our neighborhood. And we're going to see people saved. And we're going to see people knit into our church through it. And it was totally a faith move of, all right, God, please come through, you know? And so Easter comes, rolls around, and the room is full. We have 300 people packed out that room.
It was just an amazing day. Like, it was so cool, and we saw so many people make decisions to follow Jesus that morning at the church service. But it really, like, we were gearing up for the carnival that was happening for the neighborhood after the service. And so although Sunday morning was a massive win, and it really felt like it was an establishing moment for our little young church, what was gonna happen after really kind of blew our minds, and really seeing what God wanted to establish in the city that he was letting us be a part of.
Yeah, so after church at the carnival, we had 350 people from the neighborhood show up. I mean, I remember being so excited when I looked out and seeing just a line of people, of families, of kids with their little Easter baskets, and moms and dads just waiting to get into the carnival. And it was awesome.
I remember a lady came up to me afterwards and said, you know, this area has been like really chaotic for years and years and years. But ever since your church has been here, there's been this sense of peace. So thank you for coming. I remember going like, you know, that's it. Like, that's exactly it. It's not about the numbers of people that came. It's not about the extravagance of the Easter carnival. It's about the atmosphere shift in the city when a group of people gather together and say, Jesus will be glorified here. His name will be worshiped. We are gonna exalt him regardless if it makes us popular or if it brings on ridicule. He's worth it. And just feeling the peace of God that surpasses all understanding rule and reign in that neighborhood for that season that we were there. It was absolutely mind-blowing to be a part of that.
Yeah, so one of the most exciting things, not just seeing, you know, droves of people come to church and get their lives transformed and keep returning, but has been connecting people to a community that has really been transformative. I remember one day getting a text from one of my friends who's serving overseas as a missionary, who I knew in college, and she wanted to reach out because her brother was going through a really tough time, and he actually lived in the Austin area. And she asked if there were any men in our church that would be willing to meet up with him and just pour into him and see what was going on in his life. And I immediately reached out to Moses and asked him to follow up.
I met with Jake at a coffee shop. I just asked him, man, tell me your story, where you've been. He was vulnerable to share everything that has happened in the last, I don't know how many years, but just things of brokenness and parties and drug and addiction and different things like that.
And he told me that day, he said, Jake, if you're gonna do this, I don't want you to dip your toes in the water. I want you to dive in and give it your everything.
And he did, and he jumped fully into everything that we had to offer at the time.
I agreed to go to church with him on Sunday. I agreed to show up at 7 in the morning and set up for Sunday service. And I didn't know what I was doing or anything, but he just said, show up and start stacking chairs. And so I did. And then he said, hey man, you need to get plugged into a life group. And so I showed up to life group. I was the first one there, and I walked in, and it was so awkward, but it was great. And it was exactly what I needed, was to be surrounded by this group of people who were all committed to just running after Jesus together and doing life together.
You know, from the beginning, when we felt like God put it in our heart to plant another church, as we leaned into the city of Austin, it just became clear to be a church that was going to influence the city. We are going to have to be accessible to everyone in the city. And Austin is growing so quickly, and it's sprawling out so broad and so wide that from the day that we felt like there was a clear yes in our spirits for what God was saying, we knew that Antioch Austin would be a multi-campus church. At that point, we didn't know what it was going to look like. We didn't know how it was going to go about, but we knew that the dream that was in our heart was to see Jesus influence the city. Every area of society impacted by the kingdom of heaven, the gospel of Jesus. That's business, that's medical, that's the homeless, that's the poor, the disenfranchised. That's every area of the city, from the richest to the poorest, experiencing the kingdom of heaven and the power of a life-on-life encounter through discipleship. Like, if that's gonna happen, our church can't be in one location. Our church has to be in multiple locations.
So Hope in the City had been a sister church to Antioch for many, many years, a really long time. And we had done things in partnership with Antioch. There was already relationships established there. And this is part of the relationships with the greater Antioch movement. And as Antioch Austin planted, of course, the proximity of those relationships became certainly much closer. And I would say that because Hope in the City was going through a transition of how do we best move forward, because of the alignment of vision, of values, and also the fact that Hope in the City and Antioch had done things together in the past, it was actually most natural to really seek them out. So it was really more of a step of, hey, here's what we're thinking as a possibility. What has God put on your heart? Does this make sense to you?
And so that kind of started a process of praying and fasting and so many meetings, talking through what would this look like, and God, what are you saying? Even more importantly than the strategy of what was going on practically, it was, God, what are you saying? And as soon as we prayed about it, He reminded us of the vision He gave us from day one, which is that we were going to be a church that had multiple campuses. We would be a one house, but with many rooms. And so I remember talking to Dave and Dee and saying, hey, this is what we feel like God has been putting on our heart. And they said, that's exactly what we want to do. And so we kind of sat back that evening when everything kind of started finalizing and going like, God, you just fast forwarded this vision by 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, you just accelerated the craziest, most broad thing in this dream that you put in our hearts. You just accelerated it by 10 or 15 years. God, what else are you going to accelerate?
Yeah.
And we really think that what God did by accelerating that first campus, that it's going to set the tone for us being surprised by accelerations of other campuses. We don't have any in the works right now. Don't hear me the wrong way. But it's like, that's what God's been doing with us from the beginning. From the beginning, our heart has not just been that we would see impact here in Austin, but that we would see impact around the world. And so we have always wanted to have like a training school, a discipleship school, a place where people can grow and be equipped. And we also want to be a place where people can feel like if God put a dream in their heart to go and live amongst a group of people that maybe don't know Jesus, maybe have never heard who Jesus is. For people that have that dream on their heart, we want to be a sending center. We want to be a place like we believe in you, we believe in what God has put on your life, and we want to get behind it, and we want to catapult you into that. But man, as soon as we got that South Campus, we didn't just get a South Campus, we didn't just get hundreds of amazing people, we didn't just get a facility, we got a sending arm. It's called Antioch Global. And now we have field staff all over the world. And We have people living and working and seeing tremendous impact in the lives of those that they're walking with in those places. And honestly, our workers in Central Asia have never seen what they're seeing now. Hundreds of people reached, and the movement is just beginning. And to be a part of that and to feel like, man, there's more to come of that, and for that to be a part of who we are as a church is just exciting. And honestly, the thing that fires me the most up about what God's doing at Antioch is that God is gathering a group of people that are saying, you know what? We're going to believe there's more. We're going to believe that there's more breakthrough to be had. We're going to believe that there's more people that need to hear the story of Jesus. We're going to believe that there's more freedom. We're going to believe that the shouts of culture and the pressure of what we feel like is turning against the ideas of who Jesus is. We're going to believe that the devil has overplayed his hand, and go ahead, let it get dark, because the light of Jesus is so bright that it is going to shine out any darkness that is in this city and way beyond the city, the four corners of the world. And as I look forward, as I'm dreaming into God, like, what's next? I mean, we just finished 3 years, unreal that it's just been 3 years. God, what's on your heart for year 5? What's on your heart for year 10? I'll tell you, when I look at a map of Austin and I look at where our life groups are, I'm like, you know what, we're still not there of being a church where people have access to these little hope centers, these little life groups, these little communities of life, giving relationships. Man, we need more life groups in East Austin. We need more life groups in West Austin. We need more life groups in North Austin and South Austin. And I just get so excited thinking about, man, God, you are gathering together everything that we need to see all that's on your heart come to pass. And as I look forward, that's what excites me. A people who are hungry, a church that is healthy, and a dream that is bigger than we can even imagine. And then God's doing it. He's accelerating it. And he's getting all the glory, and we haven't seen anything yet. I can't wait to make the video at year 15, talking about all the campuses and all the nations being impacted. And I can't wait to think about this moment and say, like, wow, at year 3, we felt like we had seen so much. But I think we're going to look back in 10 years and in 15 years and go like, wow, don't despise the day of small beginnings, because God is just getting started.